and so on, allowing only what is needed for school. And number 3 is for the school to provide a weekly report to parents listing how many hours a student is using the school-provided Chromebook, what websites or platforms were used, and for how long. 2 weeks after we sent the email, there was a New York Times article that you might have seen that was on March 29th, titled Chromebook Remorse, Tech Backlash at Schools Extend Beyond Phones. And I have a couple of quotes from the article. The first one says, studies have found that digital tools such as Chromebooks have generally not improved students' academic results or graduation rates. Some researchers and organizations like UNESCO even warn that over-reliance on technology can distract students and impede learning. At least 10 states, including Kansas, Vermont, and Virginia, have recently introduced bills to restrict student screen time, require proof of safety and efficacy for school technology tools, and allow parents to opt their child out of using digital devices for learning. Utah recently passed a law that would require schools to provide monitoring systems for parents to see which websites their children have visited and how much time they spend on school devices, which is what we were asking for. Finally, the final quote was, Google said it provided tools for schools to lock students' Chromebook screens, restrict the content they saw, manage their YouTube access, and disable Chromebooks after school hours. The company said it also turned off YouTube by default for K through 12 students with school-issued Google accounts. However, on the Chromebooks that our children are using, YouTube is still active. This article underscores that our concerns are not isolated. They are shared by parents and educators across the country, reflecting a broader recognition that unchecked technology use in schools can undermine both student well-being and academic success. As the national conversation continues to evolve, we believe that our district has the responsibility to take intentional steps to restrict Chromebook usage, to protect our children's mental health, and help them develop the focus and study habits they will need to develop. Thank you.
Thank you. We wouldn't typically make a comment, except I just want to acknowledge that the letter from Mr. Trindade is part of our agenda tonight. And we will have a brief discussion about where we send that information. So thank you though for reading it. We won't need to read the whole thing then. Okay. All right. Someone else would like to speak?
Hi. I normally would have done this at a budget meeting, but the one on the 17th, I got this on the 10th. The one on the 17th, I guess, was canceled because I came up here, wasn't here, and I could not attend the 24th for personal reasons. But so it's just a couple of quick things, budget related. Therese John, by the way, thank you, Mansfield resident. I feel like everybody knows me, don't they? No. So at the 10th, on the meeting on the 10th, you talked about you all are going to be doing a retreat, and you were talking about, making budget more accessible, more transparent, easier for people to read. Yay. I agree with that. For instance, when you look at it's on C8, when you look at the faculty and staff census, what is a teacher on special assignment? I don't know what that is. And it looks as though some administrators are put into their, it shows 7 administrators, but there's 11 because 4 of them are department heads but they're in their individual budgets. I think they should be separated out. So that's a couple of things. But the 3 things that I really want to say to make it quick, there was a lot of talk about declining enrollment, which we all know is happening. So, and there's teacher attrition. Yay. I mean, there's the only way you can do that. If there's not enough students, there's not enough teachers. We still have a lot of administration. So maybe looking at that. I think the process needs to start earlier, even by March. If you want to make any meaningful change, it's too late. We talked about that at that meeting. We were talking about transportation and things like that. It was too late at that point to do anything meaningful. The process needs to start earlier. And lastly, this is sort of budget related, but And we know that Sharon is moving on. Congratulations, I think. Yes, you're retiring. I would really like to propose, and I would really like you all to think about hiring an interim before you go and hire the permanent person. I think to take the time to look at where you all want to go, where the school wants to go, where this towns want to go. I think it's really important to hire an interim. But again, I just feel like we can't get anything done. It's too late to talk about things in March. If you want to do something big in terms of like significant cuts or transportation, I won't rail about it tonight. I did the other night. So anyway, that's all. It was just looking at this. There's just some things I think that could be easier, clearer, more concise to give to people, and people might be more engaged in the budget process if it wasn't this.
Thanks, Teresa.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Another person? All right, there will be an opportunity at the end of the meeting if anyone else would like to talk. Being nobody else, we'll move on. Next up are our committee reports. So committee chairs, if you would give your reports, maybe we could start with building such, you're on this end of the table. That'd be great.
The building committee met right before this meeting. We are still discussing options and plan for the Star Depot facility and next steps for what that will look like, where it will be. We are also still getting information and making a plan regarding the HVAC updates, which ones have already occurred, which ones need to occur, what the cost and timing and logistics looks like for all of those. We also have a new 1-year lease for the Benton School site that we will be reviewing and looking at for the STAR program. And I think that's it.
All right. Policy.
Policy met on the 26th. We continue to work on the AI policy along with the cell phone policy. Part of our discussion, which is now leading to a special meeting this Thursday for 5:30 here at the Library Media Center, is discussing the results of the teacher survey of the grading and reporting policy that we sent out. We had 65 responses. We appreciate all of that participation because all the information was very helpful. The policy committee is going to go through those results and kind of compare analyses as to how we feel the teachers feel on different parts of that policy. And then I have an idea of where we should go from there, but I want to hear what everyone else, what their analysis is there. And then our regular meeting is going to be on 4/23, 5:30 here again at the Library Media Center. That meeting is going to be focused on coming up with focus group questions for students surrounding the possible cell phone policy and the same grading and reporting policy. So let's go.
Thank you.
I just have a point of information.
Sure.
And so Arthur, I was looking at the agenda for Thursday, and I see that we have this like really crucial responsibility of parsing the recent results of the teacher survey to get through. And of course, it's a special meeting. And so some people looking at that agenda might be confused about why the first item of business is this question of sort of a committee member's conduct. And I'll just say right here that that committee member is me. And it sounds really serious, right? So I'm concerned because this is about the office hours I held at Starbucks. And they've never quite been so popular, which is kind of stunning. But Deb has promised me that we'll be addressing the matter of my conduct in the second half of this meeting under that second item of new business, which is entitled Board Member Guidance, Communication, and Training. So my question is the policy committee also going to be spending time on this on Thursday?
Depends on the results of today's meeting.
Okay. So it seems like people in town might like these venues. So again, it's 5:30 on Thursday, right?
30 on Thursday, right here.
Great. Thank you.
Personnel?
Personnel met. We met on Thursday, April 2nd. And we basically, two major points during our discussion was discussing the superintendent search and how we were going to proceed with that. So I think we're talking about that in executive session tonight. And also the superintendent's evaluation format and moving forward with that as well. and also structuring things a little bit differently, so that as the new superintendent comes on board and is reporting to the full board, we'll have a different schedule for listening to those reports and then also for evaluation. So those are the two major items that we spoke about. So we'll talk more about that in the second session.
Okay, thank you. Finance.
Finance did not meet. We've been working on the budget. And so there is and then we do have a superintendent's proposed budget that have a motion on the agenda tonight under new business.
All right, thank you. Curriculum.
Curriculum met March 12th, and we got another update from Dr. Leroux on the curriculum work that's going on throughout the school in preparation to post the basics of the curriculum on the school website in accordance with the state mandate by this summer. So we spent a good amount of time on that. And then we also talked about math. We had an earlier meeting where we talked about Smith's efforts to intervene around the literacy. So we started talking about math briefly, and then wrapped up talking about connecting with the AI policy development, et cetera. So our next meeting was supposed to occur on the 23rd, but that date is not going to work anymore. So we're going to be reaching out to the committee members to find a new date.
Deborah.
Yes, go ahead.
So our sound is not picking up our voices. So if everybody could just raise your voices a little, not yell, but at least raise your voice just a little bit so people can hear us that are watching. I'd appreciate it.
Your voices are heard over the stream, but the audience members are not heard as well. Just don't mind speaking up a bit for the audience.
Thank you.
All right, EDJ.
Okay, the Equity, Diversity, and Justice Committee met on the 24th of March. We heard some updates from Dr. DiLoretto and members of the community about some celebrations that took place during the months of February and March. There was a Ramadan celebration that was held in the Smith cafeteria. Several board members, I believe, were in attendance. Coach Kelly shared information about Black History Month celebration that was held. It was originally scheduled for the end of February, Black History Month, but the snow had went into March. And it was well attended. I do think, yes, we had several members of the board were also present at that meeting. I unfortunately was out of state at the time. Which led us to a little bit of a discussion about, several years ago, actually started during COVID, we would have community members and students who would attend our EDJ meetings. And we have missed that, I think, in the last couple of years. And we're looking at ways to try to have more engagement with the community and with the students and student affinity groups in connection with our EDJ meetings, because I think we benefited a lot from hearing perspectives and bringing back to the board ideas for direction in which we go to address equity, diversity, and justice at EO Smith. Sarah Smith reported, and I guess it's happened already, that Amy Nogden invited members of the board to the deliberation of discourse at the Dodge Center, which was on May 30th, and you may want to say something briefly.
It was amazing. We all learned, and when the students were discussing their different roles, I learned something. You don't want to be the problem person, and you don't want to be the one who dominates or takes over. So there was something to learn from everyone. And because of your generous invitation to that I could bring Javina with me, she loved it. She thought it was fabulous. And then we went and looked at some of the schools. So you were like a good PR person for the building. We saw we saw the brain exhibit. I could not drag Javina out of there. So this made a great impression, and it made us feel that, our students of color can come here and have a really great experience. And thank you.
Okay, we also, I actually brought up the discussion, and it was partly based on some of the department presentations we had this year, in particular the math presentation. And I may have something to say about that later at the end of the meeting, but I think the board and certainly the EDJ committee are interested in making sure that we are effectively allocating our resources so that every student is benefiting from these ideas of education. And I think based on the numbers I was pulling together from that data, across our 3 district towns, in the aggregate, we had in the high 30%, 37 to 38%, not even close to meeting math goals. If you added the towns that are contract towns, the number would be pretty higher. I know that's something the math department is talking about. It sounds like something that the curriculum department is looking at, but I think it's also something we need to pay attention to. I finally gave an update, and I have a further update on the school meals bill before the legislature. The governor had proposed that both universal free breakfast and that any student who was qualifying for reduced lunches would also have free meals. That proposal or that bill has now gone to and come out of appropriations without any funding issues. So it looks cautiously optimistic that it will be enacted into law. Thanks.
We don't usually have a group that spreads out that far, so hopefully this will help. Everybody can hear? Great. All right, so the only other committee is our ad hoc rolling average committee, and they did not meet since the last meeting. So now we're on to student reports. Faith, it looks like you're it tonight.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, everyone.
Oh, here, send this to Faith. I can't keep them.
Okay, hi, everyone. So I want to start off with highlighting the Superintendent's Advisory Council. This past Thursday, we got to go to the NEAS Connections Conference, and some of our students got to give presentations there. So Hassan Davis and Kayla Mona gave an empowering presentation about student leadership or student-led leadership. And it seemed like it inspired a lot of other students to want to take up leadership positions in their schools, which was really nice to watch. It was really empowering. And myself and Aisa Hobson, we also gave a presentation about the nuances of the N-word. And we got to have some pretty powerful conversations in there, and I think it went really well. So, and on March 20th, we had a blood drive, and we got 68 pints of blood donated, which I thought was pretty impressive because for each donation, we are able to save 3 lives. So really, we saved 204 lives, which I think is really another thing that's really impressive. And we also received some really generous donations from teachers and businesses across the street, so we really thank you. And today or tomorrow starts the start of the 4th marketing period. So since today was the last day, we had the snapshot, and spring sports have also started up. And we're halfway through the cell phone policy pilot. And so from what I've seen or what I've collected from my peers is that in upperclassmen classes, it hasn't been that big of an issue or difficulty with putting your phones away in the pouches. You haven't seen much, back and forth with students and teachers about it. It seems to be more of an issue with underclassmen, where they might have a little more difficulty or more pushback with putting their phones in their pouches. So that's what we've noticed. And one more last thing I wanted to add is that Molly UN had their New York trip, and they got to go to New York for a weekend, and they represented Tunisia. So thank you.
Thank you. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for that. All right, moving on. We have a presentation civics in action from students Margaret Owen, Dakota Ingram, and Sage Kennedy. You're going to be at the podium? Okay, so we don't need it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andy Lanza. I am a fifth year master's student at the University of Connecticut in the Social Studies Education program. And part of my fifth year program, I'm placed at a school for an internship. But I was lucky enough to come back to EO, where I graduated 5 years ago, and worked with the Social Studies department. And one of the things I've taken on as the intern is our Civics in Action project that the seniors need to complete before they graduate. So it's a 2-semester thing. Students take it in the first semester, and then a group of students take it in the second semester. I have some students with me that will share some of the projects from last semester, but I just wanted to give you like an overview first of what the Civics in Action project is. So it's designed to encourage students to become more informed and more involved citizens, and then also become an active participant by observing and actively engaging in the civic process. So what they need to do at the start of the semester is pick something that they're passionate about, and they go out into the community, whether that's volunteer at a food bank, volunteer, work with a political campaign, and then at the end, they put together a written report on it, and then they also do a presentation to their peers about what they came up with. So this is kind of the outline of the project. This is the inquiry arc that we look at. So step one, like I said, is picking something that encourages people to leave out. That's the important part. If you pick something that you're not too excited about, come 2 months down the line, and you realize that you need to do your Civics in Action project, you're not going to be as excited. So picking a really good topic is really important. Using reliable sources, so that's step 2, to educate yourself on the topic. Step 3, consider purposeful action steps that will help address the issue. Step 4, reflecting on the process. So like I said, around a 3-page paper reflecting on the experience. And then step 5, presenting the project to peers. And they need a product or a visual to do this. And that's really, really awesome. So I had 3 students that will come up and share their Civics in Action projects with you. Sage Kincaid, Margaret Owen, Dakota Ingram, all seniors who will be graduating pretty soon. They already completed their Civics in Action project last semester. But I think I really wanted you to see the amazing work that the seniors are doing when it comes to Civics in Action. So Sage,
Hi everyone, my name is Sage. I'm a student athlete here. I play field hockey, lacrosse, and I also do unified basketball. And my Civics in Action project was on student athletes' mental health here at EO. And I did some background research. I collaborated with Mr. Giuliano, our athletic professor, Mr. Bowman, and my research teacher, Ms. Harrington. And I sent a survey out to coaches outside of Region 19, so like golf coaches, things like that. And then I created a survey for students here. I had to get permission from our principal, Dr. De Loretto. So then once I got that back, I was able to like put together a graph of positive and negatives. I got about 50 responses for the survey, which is pretty good. But the top graph is the positive traits identified from the athletes upvoted. At the top is growth and standards, and they're supportive and caring and are like balanced and fair and create a positive culture for our teams. And then towards the bottom, you can see communication and feedback, which is on the lesser side, which goes into like our more negative traits for lack better terms. And you can see that poor instruction and feedback is one of the bigger ones. And then one thing I think might confuse some people, one of the sections is physical health and safety. For that, it was really identifying like sometimes like athletes can be told to be played through injuries, or like if our athletic trainer says, no, don't play, the coaches will push to have them play anyway, even if they're. But yeah, that was my civics and action project.
Thank you.
So hi, I'm Dakota. I'm a senior at PO, and my project is on domestic violence awareness and the misrepresentation in the media. So to do this, I had a partner, and we kind of have like a 4-step plan. Our first part was we read the book It Ends With Us, and we finished in mid-November. And while we were about halfway through the book, we met with the local domestic violence child advocate, Paige Briggs, to talk about what we thought were some of the negative aspects the book was portraying that could be harmful to both victims of domestic violence who were reading the book, and then people who are unaware or not as knowledgeable about domestic violence and the issues that come with it. So then our next part was we had a speaker event at EO in the lecture hall and also in the library, where we had a health class and a civics class come, and Paige Briggs, who's the child advocate, talked about some signs of domestic violence and how it can present itself throughout different age groups, and warning signs and support services that are available. And then our third step was we watched the movie It Ends With Us, and then we had a final meeting with Paige Briggs where we discussed our total findings about, as I said, the parts of the media that was being harmful. And then we wrote a letter to Colleen Hoover, which is the book's author, explaining why we thought that some of her aspects were very cool.
That is great.
Maggie. I'm actually a junior, so I took this class a year early. That me and my partner who's sitting over there focused our project around period poverty. And we kind of started that like focusing off of the tampon tax, which is luckily not instated in Connecticut, but basically focuses around the idea that menstrual products are like classified as non-necessary hygiene products, so they get to be taxed extra. And so we switched our focus kind of to period poverty, specifically in Connecticut, and found that 1 in 3 teens and 1 in 4 adults in Connecticut struggle with period poverty. So after doing some research, we ended up partnering with the Holy Family Home and Shelter in Wyndham. And we met with the shelter director, who is Sarah Dufresne, once just to kind of talk about the ideas that we had and how we could further implement that with them. And from there, we started fundraising. We set up a Give Butter page, which is like a fundraising site that doesn't charge taxes for nonprofits through her. So all the money was going directly to the shelter, not to us. And then we made flyers, and we also made an Instagram account to kind of spread further knowledge about period poverty and what it is. And we started collecting money. I think that was in November-ish, and we ended up reaching our goal of $1,500 in December. So from there, we then set up another meeting with Sarah. Oh, and before I had also gone to the board to just like, we had already gotten approval from Sarah, so we didn't need board approval, but just to kind of tell them what we were going to do. But after we reached our fundraising goal, we went back and met with her to kind of decide how we wanted to go about purchasing products and setting up a date for when we would actually pack the kits. So we ended up doing an Amazon order with her of a bunch of different stuff, as you can see in that picture. That was not all of it. There was probably a good 15 other boxes. But we ended up totaling 144 kits, which look like this. So each of them has everything you need for a regular 7-day cycle, and also a extra pair of underwear just in case, and some hygiene wipes and stuff like that. And our goal was, I believe, 132 kits, which was meant to last the shelter for a year for all of its residents who menstruate. So that's over a year's worth of supplies for them. And yeah. That's
Amazing.
Great.
We're inviting all of you as board members to come to our Civics in Action Expo event on Thursday, May 2nd, from 12 to 2 p.m. in the LMC. And with this, actually that date.
Yeah.
Where's the say on your packet?
April.
What?
Is it April 30th?
It's in May.
It's in May.
That's
May 7th? Maybe May 7th?
We'll clarify that.
Yeah, we'll clarify that. But this is your formal invitation to come to this event. And why, and why I said that you'll like that is because we'll have a lot more students here presenting on their Civics in Action project from last semester and this semester as well. So it's a really cool opportunity for you all to see the amazing work that our seniors are doing. And to give them credit, because this is the whole semester project that they have to do. This isn't, a week effort. They're putting in a lot of time. And I know that they would really appreciate your presence at this event. This is some pictures from last year. We held it here. I wasn't here. This is what it looks like. Also, something else to point out about the Civics in Action project. When I was here as a student, it was freshman year that you would do your Civics in Action project. And it was recently changed to senior year for students to participate in. And we think that because of that, students are closer to the age of actually being able to civically participate in our democracy. And what we've seen is that because of that, students are way more engaged than they were because they're able to create a lot more meaningful change that way. That's it. I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you have any questions for the students as well. Yeah.
No, it's not a question. It's just, I am so proud of the young women. And thank you. You're doing really meaningful things, which, we do not realize the privilege that we have. And when you said 1 in 4 adults and 1 in 3 young women are facing this, I'm going to donate stuff to where I can find, this type of work. And you all were truly amazing. You are addressing what really happens to women globally. So thank you for that. And the athletics, woohoo, you guys are great. Thank you.
Well, thank you all very much.
Thank you. All right, we have a presentation on our Italy field trip. Students, are the students here, Paige and Seth? Yes. Okay. Bye, thank you.
Yeah. See you open.
Alright, so we wanted to make. Alright, so we wanted to make a presentation.
Bye. Wake up.
Is it on?
Alright, so we wanted to.
You push the little button.
Push, I think the button was not on. Doing great.
Alright, so we wanted to make a presentation on the importance of our Latin field trip to Italy. Because we heard that with budget cuts, we just want to like make sure that it stays in the program because it's more than just a vacation away from school. It's really an important experience.
What about that?
Well, I think we had an extra.
Oh, yeah.
Clear that.
On the right. Get rid of that. Yeah.
There you go.
There we go. Okay. So far, so as you can see in the top corner, that was a photo out from my window. So we landed in Rome, and the first experience that we had landing in Rome was walking downstairs. I thought that was absolutely the coolest thing I've ever experienced in my life. I also learned that Irish has their own language, so that was really fun. So in the beginning, when we got to the airport, the first thing we did was transportation and personal belongings. We had our passports the entire trip, and that's just saying 16, 17, and 15-year-olds with passports, which is basically your route home and your route back. So that was something important that we had to have going around. And then once we landed in Rome, we were rushing to make sure that we could make our first stop, which was at Aria, which was a really cool virtual experience, if you can see us in there. And then we got to explore the streets of Rome for the first time with a few lemons of like blocks and like streets that were passed here or there. And we got to talk to new people, hear language a little bit, and we got to just experience new food, which was really cool. And there was a lot of time management and communication that was going on the first day. And that was really cool.
All right, and then the second day, this was a very long day. We woke up early, got to bed late, and this was like our most half day, I would say. And here we faced adversity with getting into places with tickets. We had some ticket times that, either didn't work out or we couldn't find the guide. So we got to practice some patience and really trying to figure out how to move everything around so we could still fit everything in. And so we got to visit the Colosseum, go out onto the Colosseum floor and see how it actually worked. And we also got to see the Pantheon, the Roman forums, really explore a lot of the Roman ruins that are scattered throughout Rome, while trying to get into everything with all these silly things.
Our third day was our last full day-ish in Rome for exploring everything. One of our first stops was bright early in the morning. We went to Capitola, which was a really, really pretty castle. It was right on the Tiber. And we got to experience public transportation in Rome on a public bus and validating your tickets. Mr. Master was telling us a very funny story about him in Australia and why it's so important to validate your tickets. And later that night, we had a
policeman come on to look at our validated tickets. So that was very fun to hear. And then also, I think that was a very long walking day. We walked all the way from our hotel all the way to St. Angela, which is like 20 minutes. And then we walked along the highway all the way up to an orange garden. And then we went to go see the Keyhole. We didn't have time to see it, but we still walked up there. And then we walked all the way past the Circus Maximus, which is their chariot racing. And then from there, we went to Gladiator School, which you can see up there. So that was probably one of our other really long days. And there was a lot of physical movement. So it was kind of seeing our limits and communicating, hey, like, all right, might need to head back soon.
All right, and then on day 4, this was our day of transitioning over to Naples. So we had to ride a train and a subway, and we had to like figure out how do you do all this stuff? How do you navigate the train station? How do you make sure no one steals your luggage? Stay together as a group, keep track of everything while putting in times for food and just making sure you can get through the day. And then we also got to, can't remember the name, but we got to visit another castle, St. Elmo. Thank you. So we got to, still fit some things in. We also rode a funicular up there. So we got to experience how do you travel throughout Italy while, fitting everything into your day still.
And also just adjusting from a little bit, I'd say a little bit more rural and more touristy, and then we went straight to Naples, which is like our Boston. So it was like rural, the city. So that was a really good experience too. Our good day was our later day. We spent most of our day in the ancient Naples, with Pompeii, and that was probably one of the sole main things that we did, and we all looked forward to going that way. And Seth wasn't in Latin 1, but I was, and that was the coolest thing ever because that was our entire Latin 1. It was based off Pompeii. So just walking the actual streets, being in the amphitheater and everything was really amazing. And then after we did Pompeii with our amazing tour guide, we walked all the way up Mount Vesuvius. And it was really, really cool. Unfortunately, it was really foggy, so we didn't really see the crater that much, but he did pull out a book and show us what it looked like. But it was really cool to experience walking up there. And thankfully, we had amazing weather the entire time we were there. We did take one rainstorm on this day, but it was very short. So it was like figuring out, where is everyone? Are they getting rained on? Where is everyone right now? And are we going to go eat right now? Because people are getting more hungry. So that was a really interesting day.
And this was our last day, in which we spent some time in Naples at the start, going to Herculaneum, which is sort of like Pompeii, but the way it was destroyed by Mount Vesuvius leaves it more intact. So we got to see like 2-story buildings and more a complete Roman type city, which was super interesting. And then after that, we headed back to Rome. So we took the train back, and we kind of dealt with the fact that, hey, now our trip's ending. We might not see these people as much. You'll still see them in school, but we had to this is our last day. What should we do? So we went out for gelato all together, and then we took this amazing walk to the Colosseum at night, which is super cool. It's all lit up in all the arches. So we got to have one last moment together to kind of enjoy the trip and kind of reflect on, hey, this was a really fun trip, and even though we're going home, it still impacted us a lot.
We all learned responsibilities and things traveling, and I think a lot of stories that we will absolutely never forget, like judging characters at train stations when they're trying to help you get a ticket. The change. That was a really trip.
How many of you were? How many?
11. And we're spread out through Latin 2. Yeah, Latin 2 all the way to Latin 5. It was really good mix.
Thank you. Thank you. Super interesting.
And I just want to make a comment. Taking students out of the country is a huge responsibility on the part of our teacher and our staff who do that. And Joanne does an absolutely amazing job making sure that every detail is taken care of, so that the kids can have that experience. And it seems seamless, but it is a tremendous amount of work and energy that she puts into making sure that's a fun trip, but also a safe trip for the kids. So it's huge. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, next up is our special report from our assistant principals, Karen Perul and Dave Tanner. Floor is yours.
Come back to follow.
I know,
That was exciting.
Find the mic, find the mic.
You don't think we can use our teacher voices?
If the people in the back can hear you, you're good to go.
You guys tell me if I'm not speaking loud enough.
So we primarily have two responsibilities: to oversee academic support and the behavioral interventions. So we're starting with a slide that have our program additions from 2023 to 2026. For those of you who can't see it, we work on preserving instructional time. So particularly this year, we're looking at cell phone use. The idea of the first 10 minutes of class and the last 10 minutes of class. And this year we instituted a hall pass system. We're still looking at the implications of that, but we had a student center redesign where we added a huge component of peer tutoring and the idea of consolidating interventions. Previously, the academic supports were kind of separate. By bringing more students into the student center, they could accomplish more on different subjects. So it wouldn't just be in a MASH support, which is our math academic study halls. They might get math and science. The peer tutors could support multiple subjects as well. We implemented a dress code to some degree or not of success. We have vape detectors, again, with some degree of success, but what did we say about our students? They're getting more sophisticated in their evasive attempts to avoid the vape detectors. Our REACH program is for chronic absenteeism, so that is something that has been implemented more recently. Our social workers have started groups. Last year, for example, we had a decision-making group. Some of those students, again, returned for that decision-making group, and others said, no, I think I've gotten what I need, I'm good. There's some social skills groups. I think we had one this year where, again, it related to decision-making, but it was more specific related to peer interactions. So it's a really interesting opportunity. And the last thing is our Smart Recovery, which was for addictive behaviors. We didn't have a need for groups. We didn't have as many kids, so it morphed to a one-to-one support with a social worker from Mansfield.
So I think she mentioned on the academic support side, really it starts with Tier 1 classroom instruction. That is the biggest, the most significant intervention, period. The academic study halls are in use. Student Center we've seen this pretty significant uptake in terms of students assigned there and students hard scheduled in. Peer tutoring programs grown pretty significantly in the last year. And literacy support in school has changed significantly with Kelly Riccardi joining us. I'll show you some numbers for that event. In terms of academic study hall use, kind of looking year over year, again, this is as of April 5th compared to all of last year. So it's not exactly apples to apples, but it gives you kind of a trend of what's happening. Math and science are kind of on the same path. Science probably finished somewhat about where they were last year. Math will probably exceed a little bit. English and social studies are both slightly up from last year. Student center numbers are the most significant change. The traffic in student center has really grown quite a bit this year. This is kind of the trend line for student center traffic, just to kind of give you an idea. it's an interesting graph when you look at it from the standpoint of it's great that we have that much traffic. But the counterbalance of that is tier 1 instruction and the balance of intervention at the secondary level. You really don't want to see that secondary intervention numbers. If those numbers get too high, that question of efficacy in tier 1, we can't, that outside the classroom intervention is not as effective in terms of solving and helping to address student needs for learning as what happens in the classroom. So we do want to be careful looking at that. Yes, it's great. Yes, we have a lot of traffic, but there may be more in the data there to interpret. In terms of, again, Student Center, this year, as of April 5th, we have 296 students hard scheduled in. 104 of those are unique students. Compared to last year, how we finished with 235 and 71 unique students. So the uptick is significant, but again, that isn't necessarily a good thing across the board. Literacy support seen significant increase. Again, we have a single staff member responsible for literacy support. We've got 51 seats with 37 unique students as of April. Last year, the room finished with 32 seats and 21 unique students. So it's nice that we're serving more kids. I think the data is telling us that our literacy needs are really higher. They were increasing. And so that's something we really have to pay attention to. And that's something that's going to have to be probably shared across the building as we move forward in the next few years. And we mentioned peer tutoring. This year we've had 170 peer tutor requests so far this year. Got about 112 peer tutors. That's the data on the left-hand side is for 2025. There were 112 peer tutors in play right now, compared to about 98 at the end of last year. 2-week sampling in terms of what's on the calendars. I just pulled 2 calendars from each of the years. You can just see that we're up about 7%, 60%. So good peer tutoring component. This is great because it really gives you an indication of students taking an active role as participants in the learning in the school and not just recipients of learning. So I think that's really positive from a leadership perspective. The peer tutors have received a couple of trainings this year. They've really been very active. Student response has been pretty positive.
I wish Faith were still here because I believe she's a very effective peer tutor, and I think she could speak to that.
How long are each of the sessions?
So it's basically a class period, depending on if it's a Monday, the periods are slightly shorter. The peer tutoring room is that corner room over there. That's typically where most of it happens. Sometimes kids will find other locations depending on schedule and need, but that's typically where most of the peer tutoring happens.
So sorry, you mean like a student comes in, one student, so it's one-on-one for an hour? Or sorry, like.
Yeah, depending on length and the efficacy from it at the secondary level, and sometimes the model of the post-secondary in college, the drop-in model has higher levels of efficacy in research. At the secondary level, that one-to-one relationship building has a really strong, it's a strong indicator of success in the program. The drop-in model in high school, where kids don't develop some trust with each other, doesn't tend to have longevity and kids don't tend to engage as long. So we really do try to foster that one-on-one connection in the model, and it seems to be pretty effective.
So the numbers look fine, but how do you measure the success of this?
So it's the hard part.
Successful in there, but afterwards, or what's
So it's really a lot of it is anecdotal data collected on surveys. To actually measure it from a learning perspective, we probably need a math intern from UConn to stay with us for a year. We did that in world language a number of years ago, where we actually had an intern stay with us for a year and do statistical analysis of the impact. I think that from that standpoint, yes, there is impact, but I think the anecdotal, when you think about the feeling about learning, the feeling about yourself as a learner, and I think that's really where the impact is, that helping students build some confidence as learners, as feeling like they have agency in their own learning experience. I think that's where the peer component really plays in. And that's what the feedback that we get from surveys is really positive in that respect. And on the other side, the experience that tutors get, not necessarily as recipients of the tutoring, but as actual agents behind helping others. That's really significant. The kids feel really positive about that experience. Again, it's that agency as a high school student, and we heard that from some of our speakers earlier, to feel like they're more than just recipients. They're actively engaged in as partners in learning, which is great. And I think, from a community at the high school level, that's such an important component, because we don't have enough teachers to just spread them all around and help everyone all the time. But we do have a lot of students doing that. That question about, does it work? I know the data question is always out there. This is just a snapshot again as of April 5th. We know historically the last couple of years, math science have the highest rates of use of interventions. Their grade profiles seem to support that. This is not evidentiary. This is simply looking at data and saying, gee, okay, this kind of representatively looks like we might expect it to look. But this is just something we kind of keep an eye on. The administration sees this regularly. Oops. You want me to talk about vaping?
Last year we had some more specific data from is it Halo? Halo is the company that we use for the vape detectors. We were not able to access the data for this presentation. And as I mentioned before, I would say our vape detectors are going off less frequently, but I can't promise you that there is less vaping. I think students have figured out ways to, because we hear, again, it's more anecdotal, that students are vaping in the bathroom. We'll go in, we will sometimes walk in and catch students doing that and are unclear as to why the vape detectors are not going off. But it is an ongoing problem.
I think the ability for students to go online, and there's videos and resources on how to defeat school vape detectors. It's a whole little cottage industry. And so the vape detectors still go off. We still do catch kids. We run our regular procedures in terms of if you're in the bathroom, the vape detector goes off, we conduct a search, we call the parents, we play that out. But the kids have got more sophisticated. We do not invasively search students. So they've also figured that out as well. So if there's time, we frequently retrieve students, you're watching hands to see what they're trying to do and where they're trying to put devices. It's not uncommon to see kids tuck them in places. So that's a game that we, continually involved in.
We've found vapes in the ceiling.
Shoes, all kinds of places. Yeah.
I know when this came up as discussion, I think last year, when the main concern was students didn't feel comfortable using the bathrooms. Have students become more comfortable being able to use the bathroom?
I think during the class periods, yes, depending on the other strategy that students have found is if a large enough group of us goes into the bathroom at the same time and we use in a larger group, when you have 12, 15 students and the vape detector goes off, it is a very hard shuffle to try to sort that out. And I think the students have figured out that if they overwhelm us, from a strategy perspective, it's a fairly effective approach. We still will at times bring the large groups in.
We brought 15 in yesterday to do that because we were sort of like, okay, you're going to challenge us and we're going to call your bluff and took some time, but we did.
But it is it is a little bit of a cat and mouse. There's a game being played. They've gotten much more sophisticated since last year with how to play their side. But I do think from a bathroom perspective, security does their sweeps. The bathrooms aren't crowded like they used to be. We aren't getting reports like we used to.
Part of that is the hall pass system as well.
That's what we have.
But it's crowded during passing time.
Anytime you dump 900 students into the hallways at the same time.
Sure.
I did learn that vapes can come in the shape of like AirPods. It's amazing how you can disguise a vape.
In terms of just overall incident referrals, this just gives you some trend lines about incident referrals. Majors are in red, minors are in blue. Minors typically are not where teachers are submitting incident referrals, not requesting action from us. Many of these are just documentation, so we have it on record. Trend line for minors is fairly flat through the year. Majors, we've seen a little bit of increase. You can see that in the trend line. The most popular reasons, cell phones, cuts of academic supports, and students being out of bounds. Those are the three big ones. Then there's a lot of other and a lot of smaller, less frequent incidents.
I will say, once we started the cell phone pilot, though, we asked teachers to submit those as majors. So you'll see cell phone both on major and minor, and they're really the same, and we treat them the same.
Yeah. And then this is just kind of another look in terms of incident referrals. You can see it's really 10th graders, 9th graders to a slightly lesser extent. Those are where most of the referrals are coming from. We've had 315 students with one or more referrals this year. 84 staff members have submitted a referral. But that just kind of gives you a big picture in terms of what's happening. Maybe you want to look at that a little bit more. Any questions?
All right. So how do the referrals relate to the minor and major? Is it just for majors?
So when staff puts in a referral, you have a minor category, which really the goal of the minors is to create a documentation trail. So you might have to cue a student to, hey, please quiet down. Or I gave you a reminder, quiet down. So I'm going to put that in as a minor. Parent gets a communication when the teacher submits that. We see it. Most of the time, the minors are documentation. We are going to approve that. It gets kicked back to the teacher. The parent sees the approval. Sometimes if we've seen the student in other places, we might meet with the student and have the feedback, and there could be a consequence assigned to it. But minors typically are documentation. Majors are where teachers submit requesting action. Most majors have an outcome to it. Sometimes there may be other circumstances which have them, to put them on a different pathway.
But this is majors and minors.
This is,
Yeah.
this is a look at both.
Okay. And sometimes we'll look at a referral and the teacher will have checked off minor and they'll go, oh no, that's not a minor, that's a major, and we'll treat it as that. So the teacher makes that decision, but we might override it.
And can I just ask, like, how do these compare from pre-COVID?
It's hard to compare. Just introducing the minors as a category for documentation. The old system was, we started with paper when we first got here. We moved to a Google form, then we moved to PowerSchool, and now we moved back to a kind of a web app. This form is a little more efficient. So we see more documentations than we've ever seen. And that's actually really helpful because the communication trail that comes out of this system, as soon as the teacher submits it, the parents on record get an email, counselors get an email push, resource teachers receive it, we see it, and the teacher gets a copy themselves. So that communication trail is a significant change, which kind of creates a reinforcement system where it's not uncommon if a referral will get submitted, the parent will call us 15 minutes later and kind of know what's going on. So it's really nice to see that there is, there's engagement on both sides. It's not that everyone's always happy about them, but people are seeing them and they're, which is great. We also have I'm sorry.
Does the teacher have to submit this in real time?
No.
Okay, because I'm wondering about the amount of time to fill this out and get it to you. And, I'm maybe not understanding the full process. Is it like later on in the day when they get a minute, they can fill this out?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
We received a cell phone referral, I think at 5:30.
Oh, okay.
We had dinner tonight, so we'll deal with that in a moment.
And then it just goes out there.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Our cell phone pilot group, we have 33 teachers participating in it. You can see the trend line of referrals since we started back in January. So the pilot group, the pilot's work, that's really what the data is suggesting. Consistency, daily consistency from the staff participating is the biggest indicator of success in this. As soon as people become inconsistent, Students figure that out and the games are fun. But the 33 staff that are participating, we haven't, because of some of the snow days we've had, we haven't been able to see them as often as we wanted to. But the feedback generally is pretty positive from the pilot group. We have 61 teams.
Sorry, on the last slide, what do those dots represent? Those are.
So that's frequency of referrals on a given day.
Okay.
So you can see like.
And what's on the bottom?
February 5th,
okay.
There were six cell phone referrals out of the pilot group on that single day.
Gotcha.
But you can see kind of the trend line in this. We're not seeing as many. There still are some peak days where we'll get multiples. We had a few today. But it's really not as frequent as we saw initially.
So those are individual days over the full course of the pilot?
Since January when we started in semester 2.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
And then this is just a comparison. So we have 33 teachers in the pilot. They've submitted 58 referrals as of, I think it was Monday. We have 61 teachers not participating in the pilot. They've submitted a total of 29 referrals. I think this is really the challenge question behind, from a policy perspective, the pilot's working. How we enable all staff to participate at the commitment level of the pilot really is a question. If that's in any organization, that's always the question. The pilot itself is, so that's really positive. Questions?
Something. Right. Any other questions, Rhonda?
Any other questions? I think that we have this data.
Yes, I do have it.
Yeah.
I got it at 6:30 tonight, so it will be in that drive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you both.
All right. I think our next order of business is our superintendent report. Yes. So as can y'all hear me out there? Yes. No. No. Okay, ish. We'll ish. We'll get the video. So, as always, I'm just going to highlight some of the more significant pieces from the this month. One of the things I'm really excited about, I've been meeting with Mr. LaPointe's video production class over the course of the past few weeks. They are working on a project to develop a short public relations video. They are the most enthusiastic, excited young people with this project, where basically I said, I kind of want this, but I am not artistic at all. I don't know how it works, but I would really love something to kind of look like this. Go free and see what you can do. And so they will show up at my office and ask for a meeting so that they can show me their progress. They get it. And it's absolutely amazing what young folks will do when you allow them to be creative and to kind of lead the way. So I'm really excited about that. I'm excited to see their finished product. I met with them this week, and they gave me a little snippet of where they are so far, and their enthusiasm is absolutely contagious. I attended an online presentation with the State Department of Education regarding the district repair and improvement project. That's what DRIP stands for, because I always forget. We will be receiving from the state $90,575 to be put toward building repair, which is timely and very much needed. Interviews were held for the assistant principal position. Very excited to announce that the committee chose Mr. Dan Uriano to be the new assistant principal at Leo Smith High School beginning July 1. So we're very excited about that. As Faith mentioned earlier, 2 groups of our students presented at NEAS. This was a big deal. There were a lot of districts that submitted their proposals for presentation to the New England Association of Schools and Colleges. This is a big conference that they joined with Sutton High School last year. It's supposed to be presented at Clark University. We had some weather issues. They rescheduled it and presented at Convention Center in Marlborough, Mass. Last Thursday, as Faith said. And we had Hazana Davis and Kayla Lynn present a presentation called Lead It Like You Mean It,
where they shared what they've been involved in and how to encourage students to take the reins and to step up as leaders and how to facilitate and how to advocate for that within their own school districts. They were amazing. Both of these sessions were filled. I was actually, because I've been associated with NEASC on the board of trustees, I was in charge of the rooms. I was the room leader. I actually had to turn people away because our room was too full. Faith and Aisa presented The Power of a Word, Examining the N-Word in History and Modern Culture. As Faith mentioned, very powerful. We had a room full of students having very, very challenging conversations. Our students did an amazing job facilitating and maneuvering really difficult conversations with adults and with students. We had teachers from other districts coming up to Faith and Aisa after that presentation, asking for copies of their presentation so that they could bring them back to their school. Really, really proud of our kids here. They were absolutely amazing. And my main job was pushing the button on the slide projector so that their PowerPoint played correctly. It was all I had to do that day. We've had some meetings with Dennis Stanovich, Seth Carilla, and Amanda Backus to quantify the amount of money that we spent between 2015 and 2026 in regards to security upgrades. So we've been talking over the past few months about the fact that we were granted the 2023 security grant that initially state said we weren't going to get. And then EO, as well as other schools in the state, were then told that yes, you are getting the grant. We had put in a total grant amount for $1,918,362.38. It was a really big deal for this to be granted. Our portion of that grant, based on our reimbursement rate of 81.0%, is $363,180.09. Dennis and Seth are quantifying how much we've spent since 2015 because that amount that we've already spent counts toward that portion of what we kind of owe to the state for that part of the grant. Right now, according to Dennis this afternoon, we're at about, actually the numbers shifted since I spoke with him last, so we're at about $650,000 that we've already spent. So we've far surpassed our grantee match, and now that's money that we'll ask for reimbursement from the state, and that will be put into our capital budget, which is again a huge area of need. I was honored to serve on a panel with Ryan Aylesworth and Amanda Backus and representatives from Ellington at the EastCon Partnership and Practice Conference, where we talked about shared services. When you start really talking about what we do and the services that we share and the collaboration, the communication that has to happen between Mansfield and the region, as well as the communication between the region and Ashford and Willington, even though we don't necessarily have shared services, it was a really powerful conversation. It was a great opportunity to be able to be a part of that. I was very excited about that. So it's been really busy, that above and beyond the whole idea of budget season, but that was my month. Any questions? Yes.
For the NEASC presentations from the students.
Yes.
I'd love to get a copy, or if they could come and present or something.
Yes. So Nick just asked for a copy of the presentation for students to present. Their presentations were 55 to 60 minutes long, but I would be sure that they would be really excited to share the presentation.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Next up for us is the consent agenda. Are there any items that need to come off the consent agenda before moving forward? Not seeing any, I will need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Nick and Morgan. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, consent agenda moves forward. Okay, under new business, we the Finance Committee has sent to you the Regional School District 19 proposed budget for the 26-27 year, and we need to look at it.
I'll make a motion that the Regional School District 19 Board of Education adopt the superintendent's proposed 2026-2027 budget for $26,203,960 as recommended by the Finance Committee. Did you all hear? I'm just looking sure.
All right, we have a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I just wanted to add that that is a 3.5% increase from the previous year, from our previous year.
Thank you. Okay, no discussion. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right. So that budget will go to referendum on May 27th. First Tuesday of May, May 5th. And all three towns will vote on it on that day. All right, moving on. Our next item is more of a discussion than anything else, and I'm just going to introduce it. It's listed as board member guidance, communication, and training. These are opportunities to explore what we can and can't to explore. So I'm just going to introduce this. As a Board of Education, we have strict rules about how we communicate with the public beyond our open meetings. The FOI, Freedom of Information rules, are very specific, and I think it's a great idea to review some of the parameters that impact us as the Regional School District Board of Education. This will also be the focus of our board training with our board attorney on April 20, 2026 at 6:30 p.m. We specifically asked him to help us be aware of how we get what we need from the public, but how we do that within the Freedom of Information rules that we are really held to. So my intentions here tonight are just to reinforce what most of us already know. We're one body with representatives from 3 towns. Our roles require us to serve the regional school district. Our primary constituents are the students and families of the regional towns, as well as the students and families who come to us by tuition. All of the actions we take must consider the entire body of the region. This includes how we communicate with our constituents and how we make decisions. The fact that we are elected by 3 towns to be on the board does not mean that we are 3 separate bodies. We all answer to the same region. We have many vehicles at our disposal to collectively gather information and make decisions within the legal framework of both our bylaws and our state and federal laws. Our committee structure is one of those vehicles. At no time do individuals have the right to independently solicit information on issues that are actively being addressed by a committee, or that the Board of Ed has not established a plan for obtaining such input. Obviously, we also have the portion of our meetings where the public and any of our communities may address the Board of Ed, both at the beginning and the end of our meetings. Likewise, our committee meetings are advertised and offer another avenue for public input. As a board, we can determine that we need more input from our community on a specific issue and can devise a plan for obtaining that input from all of our constituent communities. That can include, but is not limited to, properly noticed open meetings or some type of survey. Likewise, committees have similar abilities to devise a properly noticed session designed to obtain public information. While individual board members may hear from the public while in the community and or receive some type of written communication, we've had some this week, or any other response, but that information needs to be referred to the appropriate administrator or committee or the whole board. And any other way of doing that is not acceptable. In other words, board members can't solve the problem except by referring to the places in the school where the problem can be solved. As we represent the entire region, sessions held in a board member's town with just constituents of that town and without a Board of Ed committee authorization, Board of Ed / committee authorization, may both violate FOI rules and risk the appearance of divisiveness. Additionally, any independent action of this kind really erodes the trust that the board members need to have with each other to be effective in serving this region. Social media, including Facebook, Instagram, etc., is not recommended as a vehicle for Board of Ed communication with the public. It automatically prevents access by anyone who doesn't use that tool. It's hard to imagine there isn't anybody who doesn't, but I know people who don't use it. And in our case, as a regional board, it may automatically exclude member towns if we use a Mansfield page, for example. Using this tool to publicly invite individuals to comment on named topics currently in committee or in some other working state is problematic on many levels, not the least of which is that it invites a series of comments that can set off unnecessary alarms among the select users of that platform. And the CAVE materials are pretty guiding in that regard. They really encourage boards to avoid using social media, unless it's part of a big PR plan that the community has in place. So any board member can recommend to the board as a whole or a committee a manner of obtaining public input. There, using Robert's rules, decisions can be made by the entire group on whether or how to proceed. So our role as a regional board and the fact that we are elected by 3 towns separately does not change the fact that our overriding responsibility is to the constituents of all 3 towns. This, in effect, is different from a one-town board of ed in many regards. However, it would be just as problematic and divisive for a single board member in a single town to decide to hold their own public meetings. On a practical level, in the event that a decision is made to do some type of public input activity, in addition to the freedom of information requirements, a setting that allows privacy and plenty of seating needs to be selected. The obvious problems with public, and I put in parentheses, restaurants and small spaces is the limited physical access and privacy. And so a small space such as Starbucks, especially in stores, is automatically a problem in terms of access. So I spent, because this just presented a unique opportunity, and I honor Kathleen's desire to get more input from our voters in town, it prompted a good investigation of what we should and shouldn't know as a board. And I met with our board attorney, Ken Weinstein, and we got input also from the CAVE attorney, Patrice McCarthy, who supported what I've just said. And so, in fact, we're hoping that through our board training and through some other communications that we have collectively, that we can really make sure we get what we need in order to do our business with the public in mind, but that we're also very sensitive to the fact that we are one body serving one region of many towns. And in the case of E.O. Smith, we also serve some other communities by tuition. And that's our constituency. And that includes the public in all 3 of our communities. So in a perfect world, Starbucks would be bigger and that Ashford and Willington would have been able to participate. And that's as simple as it gets right now, but it's a great opportunity to explore this further with our entire board. Kathleen?
Yeah, I'll be no bank.
Yeah.
I appreciate the chance to have this in a public forum, because I think originally, Deb, you really wanted to have this in an executive session where we wouldn't actually be able to talk openly or really kind of think about the publicness of the forum, right? Which is sort of my point. So I want to suggest first that this board does really need to rethink our relationship to our communities. And by community, I'm not referring to the very cozy relationship of this board and the E.O. Smith administration, but by community, I mean the actual lived communities we serve, the communities of parents, teachers, and students across all 3 towns. So that message was sent really loud and clear when a large crowd of teachers showed up in this space last June to say that their voices hadn't actually been heard, right? And it was sent again in the dead of summer in Mansfield when a lot of folks showed up and what was supposed to be a rubber stamped caucus. And it's being sent again now when people are here on a Tuesday night in the middle of the really crazy busy weeks of April. And it is extraordinary, I think, that this message has not been received. And it's been extraordinary to me that we are here discussing not policy, not the school climate, not the many things that need addressing, but instead we're spending this time here to call out my efforts to create more dialogue and to hear from Mansfield residents. And there are 100 ways to dress this up in language and to contemplate far-fetched technicalities, to slow roll events off the calendar, to find ways to say no if you don't want genuine dialogue with your communities. And indeed, this board has become very accustomed to telling parents and teachers and students and board members what they cannot do. And I'm here because I really want to dedicate some serious effort to thinking about and making possible what teachers, parents, and students in this extraordinary community can do. But to get there, we really have to listen. And we have to listen not just to our board. Our students are not our constituents. Our students are largely underage as far as voting. Our constituents are the people who are elected us in all 3 towns. This is constructed as a power structure from the bottom up, where the people elect us to represent their concerns from our 3 towns to E.O. Smith, which is a blend of all those. So we have to listen. And in these last few weeks, I've heard a few things, mostly from the Mansfield members of this board. I've heard reason after reason not to take a few hours to listen to the opinions of the community I represent. Reasons that range from how Starbucks was too crowded, to how he had to get it approved, not by the lawyer I spoke with at CABE also, but from another lawyer, how I was rushing things, how we needed to wait and have more meetings to discuss a general plan. These are all reasons not to just simply listen to people. And so this whole time, I've also really been wondering, I have my own question, which is, what exactly don't we want to hear? I have a lot of other things to say too. And I know you have a prepared statement about FOIA. But if you'd like to address that, I'd be happy to hear. But I also have some additional information I gathered specifically about FOIA.
I think what I would like to do is see if any other board members would like to comment. Alan.
I just have a couple questions. Approximately how many people showed up?
About 8 to 10.
8 to 10 out of 11,000 voters in Mansfield. I just don't understand what I would do with this data. 8 to 10 people that showed up. First, things that were specifically asked. And so like if 8 to 10, if 100% of 8 to 10 of those people that showed up were concerned about AI, I don't know if that really, is that useful for me? I guess that's the problem, is that this whole process, like well-intended, it doesn't actually give us any useful information at the end of the day. Like you can have 8 people come, but if you've advertised on Facebook, you know, and then like it opens up to comments, I can't use that information. It's not helpful to me that 8 people out of 11,000 are concerned with something that you promoted.
Kathleen.
Thanks, Ellen.
Point of order. Please. I want to give every board member who wants to say something an opportunity to speak. The intention of this session done this way is to just set the stage for us pursuing this further with the lawyer who guides and supports our board. So this is not a debate about, at this point, whether you did the right thing or not. Right now, the advice we've been given by our attorney who represents our board of ed and by the CABE attorneys is that while intentions might be good, it's not an appropriate vehicle for obtaining information.
I think you said that was because of FOIA, right?
It's way more beyond FOIA. It goes back to our entire committee structure.
Yeah, I think it's important that we identify what the acronyms are, because not everybody in the community knows what the acronyms are.
Thank you, Janice.
So FOIA is freedom of information.
Right.
Thank you. And CABE is?
The Council of Boards of Education in Connecticut. Thank you. Thanks, Janice. That's great. At this point, anybody else like to make a comment independently? Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Speak loudly.
A couple of things. I don't really need to.
Show.
Okay.
Here you go.
The community, for purposes of this board, is not the community the Mansfield voters who elected you. Once you become a board member of this board, you represent the entire community. You represent, and I'm going to take this out of our bylaw. An individual board member does not represent a factional segment of the community, but is a part of the body that represents and acts for the community as a whole. The Board of Ethics of Region 19. Board members and the superintendent are committed to providing the opportunity for high quality education for every student and making the well-being of students the fundamental goal of all decision-making and actions. They are, in fact, our constituents, the students. Recognize, this is also from the Board of Ethics, recognize that they serve as part of an educational team with mutual respect, trust, civility, and regard for each other's respective roles and responsibilities. In addition, board members represent, this is again from the Board of Code of Ethics, recognize that they represent the entire community and that they must ensure that the community remains fully informed on school-related matters. You focused on the last part of that, not on the first part of that, and that's critically important. And these technical, far-fetched technicalities, which are law, can get us all in a lot of difficulty if we don't follow them, and that's why they're there. And no single board member has the authority to take upon themselves to decide, I talked to a lawyer, I talked to Kate, we don't know what she said, because none of that's been disclosed to us. We don't know what those conversations were. We don't know how you presented yourself at that meeting. We don't know anything, and that's the problem.
Are you
is that we are all responsible for the actions of this board. You as a board member need to recognize that.
Are you worried that I did something illegal?
I think you did do something illegal.
What is the part that I did illegal?
You conducted a meeting on your own, a public meeting, which you scheduled and announced with only a faction of the community, without inviting the full community, and with no oversight, no talk to the board, no recognition by the board that you were doing this. And we also don't know what any of the information you're bringing back, because only you that heard it is accurate. That's why these are problems. It's divisive. We can't afford to be divisive. We have a struggle ahead with declining enrollment and budget struggles that we're going to have. We need to be able to act together. And the actions that you've taken are divisive and are not conducive to that. And you're a brand new board member who hasn't even gone through a board training yet.
What does that last point? I'm not sure. I'm brand new.
You haven't gone through a board training.
The state, and I'll clarify, the state requires that new board members participate in training within a certain period of time. That's partially why we've gone ahead and scheduled another training session so that we can try to take care of some of those issues. And so hopefully you both new board members will participate, but it's in our best interest that we all participate so that we all hear the same information at the same time. And what we're not going to do tonight is participate in name calling or accusations. That is something we have never, ever done in my tenure on this board or when I worked for this school. To have this type of angry exchange happening when it's clear that more information and more training is required by the board members. You had a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to reflect on this. So I appreciate everything that's being said, and I understand, and I do appreciate that it's our duty to work together as a board. I mean, and the bylaws are not, they're plain English, it's not the Dead Sea Scrolls, you know what I mean? And so I feel like, this is much ado about nothing, actually, because what Kathleen did was she met in a Starbucks by herself and I would say the only reason that we're actually talking about it is because she was trying to be transparent about it by announcing it in advance. Any of us can meet alone with anyone. Otherwise, we would be sequestered to our houses. You know what I mean? For 4 years. I mean, she met alone with people. I mean, maybe the data is not reliable, but I mean, she can come in here and tell us it, tell us what she's taking notes. Her full intention was to come back to the board with the information she came with. I mean, maybe it's not reliable. I mean, that's up to us as a board collectively to decide. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out is that, I heard from people in the community that were like, oh, wow, I saw what Kathleen was doing. I mean, that's really great. Now, I want you to just think for a second about the people that got excited about what Kathleen was doing, who are now watching this, us reprimanding a board member that decided, who had the guts to go against, this resistance to now, be reprimanded on the live stream. I mean, to me, I find it to be shocking for a board member to meet with somebody, she merely announced it. A meeting, by the way, according to the state statute, has to have a quorum. It has to have 7 people. If you meet with less than 7 people, it's not a meeting.
Greg, I'm going to stop you.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why we've asked our attorney to get involved is to clarify these issues.
Yeah. Let's clarify.
Yeah, but and it was not at all my intention to turn this into a shame anybody session.
I hear you.
You took care of that yourself tonight in terms of being on the defensive and not on the receiving end of let's work through this. The reality is that we are more than happy and excited to hear from the public using the vehicles that we legally can do. And that includes the things that I referenced earlier. But it also, and just speaking to the issue of can we have a session in the public similar to whatever. And if we did that, we would publicly announce it. It could be with 2 board members, it could be with 1, but it would be publicly announced. But it would need to include the entire region. And the reality is this particular situation may have satisfied the needs and the wants of some of the people who participated, but in no way did the entire community of Mansfield or any other community know that that opportunity existed. So the problem is inclusiveness of the entire community. This board is absolutely interested in feedback. We can't do our job without that. How that feedback is obtained is very, very important. And I appreciate your comments. And I would just ask that you be patient, wait and learn.
No, I'm quite patient, and it's April. And I want to just answer a couple of things and maybe share with Tony, who was worried about the meeting, and second, Greg. So I did talk to, there's a commission called the Connecticut Freedom of Information Act Commission. And there's a very friendly lawyer who's very willing to come and actually train us on what FOIA requirements are. And that would be a really useful thing to incorporate as far as trainings. But I have some written notification here that I think would be useful for this moment, which is, hi, Kathleen. As we discussed, and this is from Russell Blair, Director of Education and Communications. Yep, thank you. This is a communication from Russell Blair, who's the Director of Education and Communications at the Freedom of Information Commission here in Connecticut. That's the body that adjudicates actions around freedom of information, which is really what this is about, right? He says, as we discussed, the key thing under FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, when it comes to public meetings, Tony, is that a meeting must be noticed whenever a quorum of board members gather to discuss or take action on board business. A listening session is okay, provided that less than a quorum of board members attend. So if one member or a small group of members wants to invite the public to discuss a topic that does not run afoul of FOIA, They can bring their thoughts and that does not, in other words, that meeting, that listening session does not run afoul of FOIA. They can bring the thoughts and comments they hear to the next full board meeting where the topic can be discussed and voted on if necessary. Because the listening sessions are not quote unquote public meetings as defined in FOIA, you do not need to notice them or take minutes. If more than a quorum of board members wants to participate in a session like this, then I would advise noticing it as a meeting, which is what we are in now. And so I agree that it might not be like terribly representative of an entire community to have 8 people or 10 people come to a meeting. It's a start. You know, I don't think it's a bad start. Not everybody can make 7 o'clock on a particular Tuesday every once a month, nor can they make many of the committee meetings, which are earlier in the day. Sometimes they start well before people get home from work. And there are many members of our communities, students, teachers, and parents, that we do need to hear from to make certain policies work. So yeah. Sorry.
I think you're gonna have to pass.
Yeah. So I'll just say, I appreciate your desire to learn more. And I think that's something that we should all think about, how we can, as a board, learn more and hear more from the communities that we serve. I do just want to point out that in our policy meeting, we had started to make a plan for collecting data on the things that you talked about with this group. So we were talking about surveys, we were talking about focus groups with students and parents. So I was confused to hear about it because I thought we already had started on a path towards developing a systematic way where we could collect data from the stakeholders on the very topics that you were wanting to hear from in the group. So that's my main concern here. I'm very actually much looking forward to hearing from the attorneys what we can and can't do, because I think it's some of the parameters are to some extent counterintuitive. So I think it would be helpful to clarify for all of us about this, and so we can make sure that we gather the information while also staying within the bounds of the law.
Sir. First of all, I don't think we're all against you. And I appreciate if we can all just be respectful. And like somebody told me that this went out just to Mansfield people. I would love to have at least been invited, all of us. I talked to Sharon. We are all in this as colleagues. I think what Tony said and what you read to us as our chair, and Tony is a lawyer, so he knows a lot about board policy. This is not personal. I don't want to be sued. Thank you. This is my 3rd trip on the board. I really don't want to be sued. Okay. And it is little things that you really have no idea can come up. I mean, if somebody asked you in that meeting something, did you at any time feel like it was confidential? And did you at any time say, geez, I really can't tell you that?
Sorry, I'm a little bit
You had
confused.
8 people, okay?
Right.
Did anybody come up with a question that you felt was not something that you could state because you know the laws that we are governed under?
You know, I really wish more people had joined me. And this was just to answer.
Just a yes or no instead of.
Whoa. We're talking about respect.
This is respect.
No. Do you know what they said?
I asked you a question.
Yeah, I can't really understand the question.
Okay. The question is, did anyone ask you anything that you felt was not something that you could answer as a board member.
No,
Okay, that's a problem. You need to know what we are bound by our code of ethics.
they didn't ask me anything.
Okay.
They told me that they didn't like the website.
All right, we're gonna have to move on. Yeah.
No, I would like to,
Well, I'm not finished. Please
Sorry.
listen to what people are trying to tell you are the laws that we are bound by. And
Sarah, can I?
yeah, I mean, I guess
okay?
you're not getting it, but I really do pay attention to that, okay? And if you don't, I think you're going to appreciate the case training. And we're all going, even those of us who have been here 3 terms. Okay.
Hello. I'm Nick. I'm a Mansfield Board of Ed representative. I'm also sort of a new board member. I've been here for like 2 years, so I also consider myself new. If it's okay with the Mansfield reps, I want to take a step back, and if I could go through the conversation we had, the 4 of us, before this event happened. Is it okay if I break that down a little bit? Sure. Is that all right? So Kathleen reached out with the idea to do the event at Starbucks. And I think I was the first one to text. And I said, that's a great idea. Because it's community outreach. And as a board member, I want to hear from everyone. Whether it's 8 people at Starbucks, however many people who are here tonight, I want to hear from you all. And I understand that not every single event is going to be fully representative of everyone in Mansfield. Definitely not representative of everyone in Ashford, Willington, Mansfield. Columbia is a sending town as well, or a tuition town. I understand that. So that is why when Kathleen brought up the idea, I said, that's a great idea. I also said that we need to make sure that as board members, we are holding ourselves to the positions that we're in. And I think this back and forth tonight is sad for me to see. I don't want any of us to get singled out. Because I've done things, I messed up, said things I shouldn't have said, whatever. And I think that goes for everyone. And I'm reminded by the event that Amy, you invited us to with Dialogue and Discourse. And students had, it was a training, so the conversations were mock conversations. But students were able to have open, honest conversations, respectful, and I would like to see more of that at the board level. And so as a board member to get invited to something like that, having been involved as a student, was meaningful. So I know I'm talking in circles here, but back to the conversation where Kathleen brought up the Starbucks idea. We had a little bit of back and forth, and I had asked that we have a caucus of 4 Mansfield members, because I, number one, want to get an understanding of where is everyone in the community at? What are your perspectives? Where do you stand on the issues? But I also want to make sure we're doing it in an appropriate way. So that's why I wanted Greg, Kathleen, myself, Deborah, were the 4 Mansfield members that Kathleen reached out to. I wanted the 4 of us to have a conversation. That conversation didn't happen. I'm not going to say publicly why that is, because I'm not going to be calling people out. It didn't happen. I asked that we could have that conversation before we did a public event, and that caucus did not happen. Then Kathleen posted on Facebook that the Starbucks event was going to happen. I had a conversation with Kathleen, said that we should, try to find a time that works for everyone. I was at work at the time that the event happened. I'm a Mansfield rep. I would love every single possible opportunity to talk to people in Mansfield, talk to people in Ashford, Willington, whoever wants to talk, I'm all ears. I couldn't go, I was at work. And that's where a caucus is helpful, because we can plan it out. We could have made sure all of our Mansfield reps were there. And we could have made sure maybe the broader board was there. Anyways, I think it's a great idea. It's always a great idea to get community feedback. But when we're reading through bylaws, we're looking for specific language. Everyone has an attorney that's agreeing with what they're saying. It gets really tense. And I think we all feel that tonight. It's really, really tense. And not only is that not productive for this conversation, it's not productive for the reason we're all here. Why are we here? Why are all of you here tonight? It's not the Starbucks event. It's not because maybe you specifically don't feel heard. It's because you want to make sure we're doing our very best, every single student at E.O. Smith. And for too long, the conversation has not been about what is best for students. And as an individual board member, I'm sick and tired of it. I don't want to be reading between the lines of who did this, who did that. I want to know what we as a board, what I as a board member can do to help every single student in Mansfield, Ashford, Willington, everyone at E.O. Smith. And so the more we have this sort of conversation, this back and forth, it's not productive. And I want to move forward. Kathleen, I want to work with you. I want to work with Deborah, Greg, Tony, all the board members here, so that we can have effective conversations with everyone in the community. I think that starts with training. God knows I need more training. I think all of us, all 12 of us can benefit from more training. And I'd like that to be where we start. And then I think a caucus would be great. Maybe a broader board conversation would be great on how we can engage with all of you going forward. So I think I more than used my time up there. But thank you.
Thank you. Nick, I want to give any other board members an opportunity before you go on.
No, I'm not gonna need it, don't worry.
All right, anybody else? Oh, yeah, no, you don't need it because you're.
I don't need it 'cause
Sorry.
I'm fairly loud. So I honestly don't know where to start, but I guess I'm gonna look at this through the lens of as the chair of the policy subcommittee. Forgive me if I jump around because a lot of this stuff has already been covered and I don't want to waste everybody's time by covering it again. But when I got word of the Facebook post, I sent it out to all the policy subcommittee members and advised that it was unacceptable. And at no time did you ever respond to me and just inquire as to why it would be considered unacceptable, to which I would have referred you to Deb to get that straightened out. After the fact, after this all had taken place, you had come up with a list of excuses in your email. And one of them, which was, this was not a board meeting, this was not a meeting, it was not a discussion of policy, it was an informal chat. I can tell you informal chats don't require a specific meeting place or time, they don't require topics of conversation, and they certainly don't require you to wear an E.O. Smith shirt because people might not recognize you. Formal chats happen between friends and community members when you happen to meet up with them by happenstance and unrelated conversation. What really bothers me about this, Kathleen, is your post specifically referenced 3 policies. This wasn't just a, hey, I'll be at Starbucks. It had 3 policies, 2 of which, the AI policy and the cell phone policy, are not published. They're in draft process. We are actively working on them. And quite frankly, as far as the grading reporting of policy goes, as the most junior member of that committee, you have the least experience and the least knowledge to discuss that policy with anybody. That's a policy that's been 2 years in the making that we now have. I'm going to pretend for a minute, though, that this was allowed and this was okay. The other problem is we're all part of the policy committee. It's not you. It's all of us. Every single one of us. You only posted this in Mansfield. You only posted this to Mansfield residents, and you only asked for Mansfield reps. I will remind you, and I will remind the town of Mansfield. The school might be on your town's land. You do not own the school. You do not run the school. You have 2 other sending towns who all have representation on this board and on that committee that are going to have the ability to talk to everybody. I have spent so much time working on feedback on a policy that started with issues back in July. We spent an entire policy committee meeting designing questions for the teachers to get their information about what is going on in an appropriate and controlled manner. We're going to be spending another special meeting 2 days from now to discuss all of the data we received. The next meeting, that meeting is dedicated to designing questions for the students And then a meeting after that is going to be dedicated to designing questions for the parents. We spend nothing but time in the policy subcommittee working on getting feedback from all appropriate parties, but we do it in a manner that's under the guidelines of this board and it's in an appropriate manner. And even when we do, as you can see from the data I sent all the policy committee members, even in a controlled format, you get information that can cause issues, okay? The end of your email closed by saying, quote, "I trust all of you to work knowledgeably and within respect to our shared goals. I deserve your trust as well." Kathleen, that's laughable. And it's laughable because at the last policy subcommittee meeting, you would have heard me tell the teachers in this school that they should not trust me because I didn't earn it yet. And I have to be on my way to earning their trust. It's not given, it's earned. Trust is an earned thing, Kathleen. It is not given. And quite frankly, as the chair of the policy subcommittee at this point, the information that you received, I don't trust that it hasn't been disseminated somewhere else where it shouldn't have gone. How do I know that? There was no owning up to the fact that this was not a thing you should have done, or you should have at least waited to get feedback from other people, from more experienced board members, something along those lines. None of that was here. So in our board, the chair is the sole determiner of the makeup of subcommittees and who those chairs are. With this information, as the chair of the policy subcommittee, at the conclusion of this meeting, we're making my recommendation to the chair of the Board of Ed that you be removed from the policy subcommittee, placed on a subcommittee that does not require as much trust or discretion.
All right. I would just entertain a motion to continue this conversation in a future meeting. We obviously are going to need more time. We also, I think, should participate in the training that our board chair, that our board attorney is going to hold for us, so that we have all the facts all at one time together, and not the debate about who's right about this event is not productive. And it certainly serves to be a public spectacle, which it is. My apologies, but it's good to see we're human beings over here and not just stiff board members. But that I would just entertain a motion that we continue this.
And I'll second it.
Discussion.
Fine, discussion.
Well, discussion,
Discussion would be, I understand why you want to kind of move it down the road into May, right? But I'm saying I have, it was supposed to be a discussion, and really it's not. It's just the mic being passed around. We've spent a lot of time, and you've decided to move this time into here, and now it is public. And the whole issue is about public communications. So a few people thought things wrong. I understand that, Morgan, you said, like you were surprised to see like kind of policy committee, kind of things, discussed. Cell phones are a community concern. AI is a community concern. These things do not belong to the policy committee because it is a policy committee. The things that we are discussing are things of the world that come into our school. And I did not discuss pilots or anything else, but nor did anybody ask me about them. As you saw on my Facebook post and the responses to it, a lot of people actually just didn't know anything about the policy, and I would have liked to actually just refer them to the policy, but it isn't on the website. So actually the thing that people talked about, if anybody wants to know, because nobody's actually asked that, they all wanted more communication with the school, and most of them found the website terrible. And so it's not, it wasn't particularly, it was a good session. I'm glad people came, but it was a listening session. It wasn't a meeting. And that's where I think a lot of this has started to go awry. A listening session is not a sort of, one board member kind of giving her opinion as is a listening session and an opportunity for people to come and hear.
Kathleen.
And this is again supposed to be kind of like a discussion, but so far it feels like a lot of scolding. And again, my point was that this board needs to rethink its relationship to the community. This session doesn't really hold a lot of like promise for that, but I'll still work to change it.
We have a motion on the floor, second. Any further discussion? Because this is clearly a conversation that we will have with our attorney. And that's super important because we have to clarify what we can and can't do legally in representing all of our constituents. The issue of whether the Starbucks thing did what it was meant to do will have to be discussed further, obviously, but we need to have the right people at the right time telling us and talking to us about this and facilitating that discussion perhaps. But this has now become a very highly charged and emotional session, and that is never what we wanted this to be. I was hoping that we would be able to agree that we're all going to get more training and that we're going to agree to find out whether or not that type of a forum can be used anywhere in our communities, or whether we need to come up with other ways of accomplishing the same thing within the confines of Freedom of Information Act. Any further discussion? Nick?
So discussion on the specific motion to
Yes.
move this to a future meeting.
Yes.
I would say that what the policy chair said in terms of removing someone from committee is worrisome. And I'll say publicly, I don't think that that's a good idea. Do I wish that we could have had a conversation before Starbucks to plan it out so that it could be more beneficial to more board members? Yes, of course. The event happened. And moving forward, yes, I agree to. I think it's great for all of us to have more training, myself included. But part of that conversation, I would like to focus on what we can do.
Yes.
What legally can we do as a board and get on the same page as what we can do? And, you know, I get in reflection, we're focusing on what we shouldn't have done or couldn't have done and all that sort of stuff. It's like, okay, great. But I want to focus on what we can legally do and have the conversation focus about what we can do. So I think reframing it a little bit, not a reflection on, oh, this rule was broken, that rule, but I want to know as a board member how I should conduct myself in order to engage with the public. I want to have as much public comment as engage with the public as much as I possibly can. I just need some guardrails to get a sense of what I can and can't do. And so that's how I would like to frame that conversation.
Agreed.
If that's how we're moving forward with this and that's how we're going to frame it, I would be more than happy to vote in favor of having a future conversation on this. But in all due respect to Arthur, I just think that removing a board member from a committee is just, it's not appropriate. And I say that for board members that I agree with certain issues on or disagree. I mean, we're all here because we disagree. I mean, that's the nature of a board. We act as one, and it's good to have disagreements. I'm not going to agree with Kathleen on everything. I'm not going to agree with Greg or Alan on everything. I mean, Alan's a Red Sox fan, and all due respect, I'm a Reds fan. No one knows who the Reds are. So it's like we have disagreements, and that's healthy and that's good. And we need to think of this positively. And I would just highlight how we can look at this positively and not looking in the past of, oh, we should have done this, should have done that.
Message received. Thanks, thanks, Nick.
And my comment was only that I think that's what Ken is going to do. And that was the purpose of doing, having a structured session with Ken to retrain or to provide training and guidance for everyone. So we're all operating from the same viewpoint.
Yes. And that may take care of it.
Yeah. And last but not least, I mean, I just will also say that I am not someone that participates on Facebook. So I wasn't even able to participate even if I wanted to participate. So I think those are different ways that how we communicate even is important, and hopefully we'll be covering that with Ken. We have a lot to do still tonight. And so we can continue this conversation.
The question.
Yeah. So I'd like to move the question.
I would like to say one thing. I don't know if you understood what I was trying to say, sorry, which is just basically going by what we legally have to go by. You know, I'm sorry that you're feeling that everybody thinks you did a bad, horrible thing. I'm not really thinking that. I just think it's incredibly important that we all know what we are supposed to be doing as a board. And that's it. We need to cut this. And I really love you, Nick, but honestly, you kind of went off the rails tonight because it's not about, I'm sorry, I'm being honest, right? I think that we all don't have to make this bigger than it is. And I'm afraid that's where you came in. You made it bigger than it needed to be.
And I'll just respond that I appreciate you, Sarah, and you know, and I think a lot of things. I have a lot of points moving through my mind, and one of them that hasn't been said a lot is that, of course, we discuss things as a board, but we're all here for from 3 different towns, because obviously our towns have different needs and different constituents, and we were elected by our towns, not by the whole region, right? So we come and represent our towns to the board, and we kind of blend that all together, and we work for our collective students. So what I say on the policy committee and on curriculum is for all the students, right? And that's the work that I'm here to do for all the students. But I represent that with a voice that is Mansfieldian, right? And I think that that's also important to have in mind, because that's also the way that this board is organized as far as weighted votes and everything else, right? Like, it's really important to kind of understand as a regional school that we do have regional differences as well as strengths when we come together. But I think what I meant by like our constituents aren't just the students, our community is the students, that's who we're working for. But representing Mansfield, I didn't try to sort of open it up to everybody. If it was Region 19, I think all of you should do that too. I think you should go to with Ashford. I think you should go to Wellington. We can toss that over that with a lawyer. You should have your own listening sessions, because you might not, your opinion might not reflect really very broadly what those communities have to say. That's my intent. And that was a first draft of listening to people. And that's what I'll say there.
I'd like to call the question. Move that we table this until another,
Is there a second on calling the question?
Second.
Any further discussion?
I just had a quick question. I just want to ask, is the motion on the floor to push it to after we have met with a lawyer?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
because I want,
Excellent clarification.
yeah, let's not discuss it anymore
Right.
without.
Agreed. Agreed. And that will be super helpful.
Maybe, yeah, we're not able to hear. Oh, I'm sorry. What I said was, I asked if we could push the meeting to after we met with a lawyer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a good question.
All right.
Good. Thank you.
Right.
Thanks for clarifying.
All those in favor of moving this discussion to a later.
You have to vote on the call first.
Oh, yes, thank you. All those in favor of calling the question, I'm saying aye, thanks. Opposed? Okay, all those in favor of moving to another date to continue this conversation? Aye, opposed? All right, that passes. I'm sorry.
I have another motion. I have a motion.
Motion relative to this conversation?
To the next, we're done with this conversation, right? So, yeah. Yeah,
Okay, all right,
a motion, which is just simply that on the agenda, we have a potential executive session, right?
Correct.
About personnel. And we always have a period for public comments. I was just going to suggest, as we did before, that the public comments be moved before any potential executive session so that we can adjourn after and the executive session ends it. That's my motion.
I would say.
Yeah, thank you.
Any further discussion about that?
It's good.
I understand, we may not even need a motion for this, but all those in favor of moving to public discussion,
Public comment.
before we start skipping, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is there any further public comment tonight? Come on up.
You have 2 mics to choose from. Take the podium.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Stephen Martin. I'm a Mansfield resident. I have a daughter who's currently at MMS. She's an 8th grader. She'll be going to EO next year. I'm also a elected member to the Zoning Board of Appeals in Mansfield, and I bring that up because the Zoning Board of Appeals has a similar rule to the one that seems to be discussed tonight with regard to the Kathleen Tomry discussion. And I think that in the context of Zoning Board of Appeals, it makes a lot of sense because we're not a policymaking board. We are adjudicating questions of fact or factual disputes. But in terms of like the Board of Ed, where you are a policymaking board, and in fact, as Anthony helpfully pointed out, it is in your Board of Ed, in your ethical guidelines that you're supposed to maximize communication with the public. It seems to me that you are making an overly, in my opinion, not a legal opinion, taking an overly narrow interpretation of the rule. And if you're telling me as a member of the community that the only options I have for communicating with my representative is either to sit through a 2-hour meeting and limit myself to maybe perhaps a 2-minute comment, or to send an email, or to hope that by hanging outside the Five Guys, Greg Miller walks by and I have a chance encounter with him, I would say that you are failing to meet your ethical obligation to maximize communication. I think that the board should be encouraging greater communication. I do not think, and not all board members, but I think some of the animosity we've seen towards somebody who I do think was honestly trying to increase feedback with the public, with the community, I think does speak to a certain dysfunction on the board. And I think that unfortunately, for those of us who were at the caucus last year, I think it serves to validate a lot of the complaints that people heard at that caucus. And so I would urge the board, as you move forward, to try to arrive at the most expansive definition possible of the policy that allows for maximum communication and outreach with the community. I personally, as a community member, would appreciate that. And I think that, if you take the opposite approach, unfortunately, I think you're asking for a repeat of what we had at the last caucus meeting. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak tonight?
I just want to say a couple of things because I feel like I'm in a kind of upside down episode of Parks and Rec. I want to move backwards to last summer when 150 people chose to take time that they didn't have and energy that they didn't have and show up to fill a room because this community is really unhappy with what's going on in the school. What?
Just say who you are.
Oh, sorry. Elisa Braun, I'm a Mansfield resident, parent of a student here, awesome. and a future student here. Maybe, hopefully. And because people are unhappy. People are unhappy because they're not getting information. Teachers showed up. The teachers who are our very best thing that the school is only as good as our teachers are. Teachers weren't being listened to. They weren't happy. People showed up to support them. So here we are back again. And what I heard was our feelings are hurt because some towns got hurt and some towns didn't get hurt. But nobody said, why don't we do more of these? Ashford didn't get hurt. Let's hold one there. Columbia didn't get hurt. Let's hold one there. What we heard is what we keep hearing, right? Things aren't working, so let's bring standards down. Equity's not working, so let's bring standards down. Let's, I heard about, like trying to stop vaping, but kids these days, I heard, cell phones, kids these days, referrals. Like, I want to see the energy that we're putting into this persecution, put into problem solving.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Motion to go into executive session. Second by Tony. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Right. Thank you for coming out tonight.